Housefly pupae killed by parasitoid wasp larva. Each pupa has one hole through which a single adult wasp has emerged. The wasp larva fed on the housefly larva. Houseflies play an important ecological role in breaking down and recycling organic matter. Adults are mainly carnivorous. Their primary food is animal matter, carrion, and feces, but they also consume milk, sugary substances, and rotting fruit and vegetables. Solid foods are softened with saliva before being sucked up. 8. They can be opportunistic blood feeders. 15. 189 houseflies have a mutualistic relationship with the bacterium Klebsiella oxytoca, which can live on the surface of housefly eggs and deter fungi which compete with the housefly larva for nutrients. 26. Adult houseflies are diurnal and rest at night. If inside a building after dark, they tend to congregate on ceilings, beams, and overhead wires, while out of doors, they crawl into foliage or long grass, or rest in shrubs and trees or on wires. 14. In cooler climates, some houseflies hibernate in winter, choosing to do so in cracks and crevices, gaps in woodwork, and the folds of curtains. They arouse in the spring when the weather warms up, and search out a place to lay their eggs. 27. Houseflies have many predators, including birds, reptiles, amphibians, various insects, and spiders. The eggs, larvae, and pupae have many species of stage-specific parasites and parasitoids. Some of the more important are the parasitic wasps Muscitiferax unoraptor and Spolengia cameroni. These lay their eggs in the housefly larva tissue and their offspring complete their development before the adult houseflies can emerge from the pupae. 14. Hister beetles feed on housefly larvae in manure heaps and the predatory mite Macrochilus muscae domesticae consumes housefly eggs, each mite eating 20 eggs per day. 28. Housefly killed by the pathogenic fungus Entomophthora muscae. Houseflies sometimes carry phoretic, non-parasitic passengers, including mites such as Macrochilus muscae domesticae, 29, and the pseudoscorpion Lamprochurns cheeseri. 30. The pathogenic fungus Entomophthora muscae causes a fatal disease in houseflies. After infection, the fungal hyphae grow throughout the body, killing the housefly in about 5 days. Infected houseflies have been known to seek high temperatures that could suppress the growth of the fungus. Affected females tend to be more attractive to males, but the fungus-host interactions have not been fully understood. 31. The housefly also acts as the alternative host to the parasitic nematode Habronema muscae that attacks horses. 32. A virus that causes enlargement of the salivary glands, salivary gland hypertrophy virus, SGHV, is spread among houseflies through contact with food and infected female houseflies become sterile. 33. Relationship with humans. Houseflies are often considered a nuisance, disturbing people while at leisure and at work, but they are disliked principally because of their habits of contaminating foodstuffs. They alternate between breeding and feeding in dirty places with feeding on human foods, during which process they soften the food with saliva and deposit their feces, creating a health hazard. 34. However, housefly larvae are as nutritious as fish meal, and could be used to convert waste to insect-based animal feed for farmed fish and livestock. 35. Housefly larvae have been used in traditional cures since the Ming period in China, 1386 AD, for a range of medical conditions and have been considered as a useful source of chitosan, with antioxidant properties, and possibly other proteins and polysaccharides of medical value. 36. Houseflies have been used in art and artifacts in many cultures. In 16th and 17th century European vanitas paintings, houseflies sometimes occur as memento mori. They may also be used for other effects as in the Flemish painting, The Master of Frankfurt 1496. Housefly amulets were popular in ancient Egypt. 37-38. As a disease vector. Housefly lapping up food from a plate. Houseflies can fly for several kilometers from their breeding places. 39. Carrying a wide variety of organisms on their hairs, mouthparts, vomitus, and feces. Parasites carried include cysts of protozoa, e.g. Entamoeba histolytica and Giardia lamblia and eggs of helminths, e.g., Ascaris lumbricoides, Trichuris trichiora, Hymenelepis nana, and Enterobius vermicularis. 40. Houseflies do not serve as a secondary host or act as a reservoir of any bacteria of medical or veterinary importance, but they do serve as mechanical vectors to over 100 pathogens, such as those causing typhoid, cholera, salmonellosis, 41. Bacillary dysentery, 42. Tuberculosis, anthrax, ophthalmia, 43. And pyogenic cocci, making them especially problematic in hospitals and during outbreaks of certain diseases. 40. Disease-causing organisms on the outer surface of the housefly may survive for a few hours, but those in the crop or gut can be viable for several days. 34. Usually, too few bacteria are on the external surface of the houseflies, except perhaps for Shigella, to cause infection, so the main routes to human infection are through the housefly's regurgitation and defecation. 44. A number of bacterial endosymbionts have however been detected in sequence-based identification from whole genome sequences extracted from flies, the greatest numbers being detected in the abdomen. 45. In the early 20th century, Canadian public health workers believed that the control of houseflies was important in controlling the spread of tuberculosis. A swat that fly contest was held for children in Montreal in 1912. 46. Houseflies were targeted in 1916, when a polio epidemic broke out in the eastern United States. The belief that housefly control was the key to disease control continued, with extensive use of insecticidal spraying well until the mid-1950s, declining only after the introduction of Salk's vaccine. 47. In China, Mao Zedong's Four Pests campaign between 1958 and 1962 exhorted the people to catch and kill houseflies, along with rats, mosquitoes, and sparrows. 48. In warfare. Philadelphia Department of Health poster warning the public of housefly hazards, circa 1942. During the Second World War, the Japanese worked on entomological warfare techniques under Shiro Ishii. Japanese Yagi bombs developed at Pingfan consisted of two compartments, one with houseflies and another with a bacterial slurry that coated the houseflies prior to release. Vibrio cholerae, which causes cholera, was the bacterium of choice, and was used by Japan against the Chinese in Baoshan in 1942, and in northern Shandong in 1943. The Baoshan bombing produced epidemics that killed 60,000 people in the initial stages, reaching a radius of 200 kilometers, 120 miles, which finally took a toll of 200,000 victims. The Shandong attack killed 210,000. The occupying Japanese troops had been vaccinated in advance. 49. In waste management. The ability of housefly larvae to feed and develop in a wide range of decaying organic matter is important for recycling of nutrients in nature. This could be exploited to combat ever-increasing amounts of waste. 50. Housefly larvae can be mass-reared in a controlled manner in animal manure, reducing the bulk of waste and minimizing environmental risks of its disposal. 51. 52. Harvested maggots may be used as feed for animal nutrition. 52. 53. Control. Detail of a 1742 painting by Frans van der Meen that uses a housefly in a Renaissance allegory of touch theme. Houseflies can be controlled, at least to some extent, by physical, chemical, or biological means. Physical controls include screening with small mesh or the use of vertical strips of plastic or strings of beads in doorways to prevent entry of houseflies into buildings. Fans to create air movement or air barriers in doorways can deter houseflies from entering, and food premises often use fly-killing devices. Sticky fly papers hanging from the ceiling are effective. 44. But electric bug zappers should not be used directly above food handling areas because of scattering of contaminated insect parts. 54. Another approach is the elimination as far as possible of potential breeding sites. Keeping garbage in lidded containers and collecting it regularly and frequently prevents any eggs laid from developing into adults. Unhygienic rubbish tips are a prime housefly breeding site, but if garbage is covered by a layer of soil, preferably daily, this can be avoided. 44. Insecticides can be used. Larvicides kill the developing larva, but large quantities may need to be used to reach areas below the surface. Aerosols can be used in buildings to zap houseflies, but outside applications are only temporarily effective. Residual sprays on walls or resting sites have a longer lasting effect. 44. Many strains of housefly have become immune to the most commonly used insecticides. 55. 56. Resistance to carbamates and organophosphates is conferred by variation in acetylcholinesterase genes. 57. M. domestica has achieved a high degree of resistance. Resistance monitoring is vital to avoid continued use of ineffective active ingredients such as found in the notably severe example of Freeman et al. 2019 in Kansas and Maryland, USA. 58. Several means of biological pest control have been investigated. These include the introduction of another species, the black soldier fly, Hermetia illucens, whose larvae compete with those of the housefly for resources. 59. The introduction of dung beetles to churn up the surface of a manure heap and render it unsuitable for breeding is another approach. 59. Augmentative biological control by releasing parasitoids can be used, but houseflies breed so fast that the natural enemies are unable to keep up. 60. In science. William Blake's illustration of the fly in Songs of Innocence and of Experience, 1794. The ease of culturing houseflies, and the relative ease of handling them when compared to the fruit fly Drosophila, have made them useful as model organism for use in laboratories. The American entomologist Vincent Thethier, in his Humorous to Know a Fly, 1962, pointed out that as a laboratory animal, houseflies did not trouble anyone sensitive to animal cruelty. Houseflies have a small number of chromosomes, haploid 6 or diploid 12. 1596. Because the somatic tissue of the housefly consists of long-lived postmitotic cells, it can be used as an informative model system for understanding cumulative age-related cellular alterations. Oxidative DNA damage 8-hydroxydeoxyguanosine in houseflies was found in one study to increase with age and reduce life expectancy, supporting the hypothesis that oxidative molecular damage is a causal factor in senescence aging. 61, 62, 63. The housefly is an object of biological research, partly for its variable sex determination mechanism. Although a wide variety of sex determination mechanisms exists in nature, e.g. male and female heterogamy, haplodiploidy, environmental factors, the way sex is determined is usually fixed within a species. The housefly is, however, thought to exhibit multiple mechanisms for sex determination, such as male heterogamy, like most insects and mammals, female heterogamy, like birds, and maternal control over offspring sex. This is because a male-determining gene, MDMD, can be found on most or all housefly chromosomes. 64. Sexual differentiation is controlled, as in other insects, by an ancient developmental switch, double sex, which is regulated by the transformer protein in many different insects. 65. MDMD causes male development by negatively regulating transformer. There is also a female determining allele of transformer that is not sensitive to the negative regulation of MDMD. 66. The antimicrobial peptides produced by housefly maggots are of pharmacological interest. 67. In the 1970s, the aircraft modeler Frank Ayling constructed miniature balsa wood aircraft powered by live houseflies. 68. Studies of tethered houseflies have helped in the understanding of insect vision, sensory perception, and flight control. 69. In literature. The impertinent insect is a group of 5 fables, sometimes ascribed to Aesop, concerning an insect, in one version a fly, which puffs itself up to seem important. In the biblical fourth plague of Egypt, flies represent death and decay, while the Philistine god Beelzebub's name may mean Lord of the Flies. 70. In Greek mythology, Myagrows was a god who chased away flies during the sacrifices to Zeus and Athena. Zeus sent a fly to bite Pegasus, causing Bellerophon to fall back to earth when he attempted to ride the winged steed to Mount Olympus. 71. In the traditional Navajo religion, Big Fly is an important spirit being. 72, 73, 74. William Blake's 1794 poem, The Fly, part of his collection Songs of Experience, deals with the insect's mortality, subject to uncontrollable circumstances, just like humans. 75. Emily Dickinson's 1855 poem, I Heard a Fly Buzz When I Died, speaks of flies in the context of death. 76. In William Golding's 1954 novel Lord of the Flies, the fly is, however, a symbol of the children involved. 77. Ogden Nash's humorous two-line 1942 poem, God in his wisdom made the fly and then forgot to tell us why, indicates the debate about the value of biodiversity, given that even those considered by humans as pests have their place in the world's ecosystems. 78. Mosquito. Mosquitoes, the Culicidae, are a family of small flies consisting of 3,600 species. The word mosquito, formed by mosca and diminutive ito, too, is Spanish and Portuguese for little fly. 3. Mosquitoes have a slender segmented body, 1 pair of wings, 3 pairs of long hair-like legs, and specialized, highly elongated, piercing sucking mouthparts. All mosquitoes drink nectar from flowers. Females of some species have in addition adapted to drink blood. The group diversified during the Cretaceous period. Evolutionary biologists view mosquitoes as micropredators, small animals that parasitize larger ones by drinking their blood without immediately killing them. Medical parasitologists view mosquitoes instead as vectors of disease, carrying protozoan parasites or bacterial or viral pathogens from one host to another. The mosquito life cycle consists of 4 stages: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Eggs are laid on the water surface. They hatch into motile larvae that feed on aquatic algae and organic material. These larvae are important food sources for many freshwater animals, such as dragonfly nymphs, many fish, and some birds. Adult females of many species have mouthparts adapted to pierce the skin of a host and feed on blood of a wide range of vertebrate hosts, and some invertebrates, primarily other arthropods. Some species only produce eggs after a blood meal. The mosquito's saliva is transferred to the host during the bite, and can cause an itchy rash. In addition, blood-feeding species can ingest pathogens while biting, and transmit them to other hosts. Those species include vectors of parasitic diseases such as malaria and filariasis, and arboviral diseases such as yellow fever and dengue fever. By transmitting diseases, mosquitoes cause the deaths of over 725,000 people each year. Description and life cycle. Like all flies, mosquitoes go through 4 stages in their life cycles: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. Like all flies, mosquitoes go through 4 stages in their life cycles: egg, larva, pupa, and adult. The first 3 stages, egg, larva, and pupa, are largely aquatic. 4. The eggs usually being laid in stagnant water. 5. They hatch to become larvae, which feed, grow, and molt until they change into pupae. The adult mosquito emerges from the mature pupa as it floats at the water surface. Mosquitoes have adult lifespans ranging from as short as a week to around a month. Some species overwinter as adults in diapause. 6. Adult. Mosquitoes have 1 pair of wings, with distinct scales on the surface. Their wings are long and narrow, while the legs are long and thin. The body, usually gray or black, is slender, and typically 3 to 6 mm long. When at rest, mosquitoes hold their first pair of legs outwards, whereas the somewhat similar chironomid midges hold these legs forwards. 7. Anopheles mosquitoes can fly for up to 4 hours continuously at 1 to 2 km per hour, 0.62 to 1.24 miles per hour, 8 traveling up to 12 kilometers, 7.5 miles, in a night. Males beat their wings between 450 and 600 times per second, driven indirectly by muscles which vibrate the thorax. 9. Tent mosquitoes are mainly small flies. The largest are in the genus Toxorynchites, at up to 18 mm, 0.71 in length and 24 mm, 0.94 in wingspan. 11. Those in the genus Aedes are much smaller, with a wingspan of 2.8 to 4.4 mm, 0.11 to 0.17 in. 12. Mosquitoes can develop from egg to adult in hot weather in as few as 5 days, but it may take up to a month. 13. At dawn or dusk, within days of pupating, males assemble in swarms, mating. When females fly in. 14. The female mates only once in her lifetime, attracted by the pheromones emitted by the male. 15. 16. As a species that need blood for the eggs to develop, the female finds a host and drinks a full meal of blood. She then rests for 2 or 3 days to digest the meal and allow her eggs to develop. She is then ready to lay the eggs and repeat the cycle of feeding and laying. 14. Females can live for up to 3 weeks in the wild, depending on temperature, humidity, their ability to obtain a blood meal, and avoiding being killed by their vertebrate hosts. 14. 17. Mosquito. Temporal range: Late Cretaceous, Cenomanian, recent. Aedes aegypti, vector of yellow fever. Scientific classification domain: Eukaryota kingdom, Animalia phylum, Arthropoda class, Insecta order, Diptera superfamily, Chilicoidea. Family: Culicidae. Anatomy of an adult female mosquito. Adult yellow fever mosquito Aedes aegypti, typical of subfamily Culicinae. Male, left, has bushy antennae and longer palps than female, right. Eggs. The eggs of most mosquitoes are laid in stagnant water, which may be a pond, a marsh, a temporary puddle, a water-filled hole in a tree, or the water-trapping leaf axils of a bromeliad. Some lay near the water's edge while others attach their eggs to aquatic plants. A few, like Opifex fuscus, can breed in salt marshes. 5. Weomia smithi breeds in the pitchers of pitcher plants, its larvae feeding on decaying insects that have drowned there. 18. Oviposition, egg laying, varies between species. Anopheles females fly over the water, touching down or dapping to place eggs on the surface one at a time. Their eggs are roughly cigar-shaped and have floats down their sides. A female can lay 100 to 200 eggs in her lifetime. 14. Aedes females drop their eggs singly, on damp mud or other surfaces near water. Their eggs hatch only when they are flooded. 19. Females in genera such as Culex, Cheliceta, and Aranotania lay their eggs in floating rafts. 2021. Mansonia females in contrast lay their eggs in arrays, attached usually to the undersurfaces of water lily pads. 22. Clutches of eggs of most mosquito species hatch simultaneously, but Aedes eggs in diapause hatch irregularly over an extended period. 19. Anopheles eggs with side floats. Electron micrograph of a Culicine egg. Culex egg raft. Larva. The mosquito larva's head has prominent mouth brushes used for feeding, a large thorax with no legs, and a segmented abdomen. It breathes air through a siphon on its abdomen, so must come to the surface frequently. It spends most of its time feeding on algae, bacteria, and other microbes in the water's surface layer. It dives below the surface when disturbed. It swims either by propelling itself with its mouth brushes, or by jerkily wriggling its body. It develops through several stages, or instars, molting each time, after which it metamorphoses into a pupa. 13. Aedes larvae, except when very young, can withstand drying. They go into diapause for several months if their pond dries out. 19. Anopheles larva anatomy of a Culex larva. Culex larva plus 1 pupa. Pupa. The head and thorax of the pupa are merged into a cephalothorax, with the abdomen curving around beneath it. The pupa or tumbler can swim actively by flipping its abdomen. Like the larva, the pupa of most species must come to the surface frequently to breathe, which they do through a pair of respiratory trumpets on their cephalothoraxes. They do not feed. They pass much of their time hanging from the surface of the water by their respiratory trumpets. If alarmed, they swim downwards by flipping their abdomens in much the same way as the larva. If undisturbed, they soon float up again. The adult emerges from the pupa at the surface of the water and flies off. 13. Mosquito pupae, shortly before the adults emerged. The head and thorax are fused into the cephalothorax. Feeding by adults. Diet. Female Ochlorotatus nodoscriptus feeding on blood from a human arm. Both male and female mosquitoes feed on nectar, aphid honeydew, and plant juices, 17, but in many species the females are also blood-sucking ectoparasites. In some of those species, a blood meal is essential for egg production, in others, it just enables the female to lay more eggs. 23. Both plant materials and blood are useful sources of energy in the form of sugars. Blood supplies more concentrated nutrients, such as lipids, but the main function of blood meals is to obtain proteins for egg production. 24-25. Mosquitoes like toxorynchites reproduce autogenously, not needing blood meals. Disease vector mosquitoes like Anopheles and Aedes are anotogenous, requiring blood to lay eggs. Many Culex species are partially anotogenous, needing blood only for their second and subsequent clutches of eggs. 26. Host animals. Blood-sucking mosquitoes favor particular host species, though they are less selective when food is short. Different mosquito species favor amphibians, reptiles including snakes, birds, and mammals. For example, Culiceta melanura sucks the blood of passerine birds, but as mosquito numbers rise they attack mammals including horses and humans, causing epidemics of eastern equine encephalitis virus in North America. 27. Loss of blood from many bites can add up to a large volume, occasionally causing the death of livestock as large as cattle and horses. 28. Malaria-transmitting mosquitoes seek out caterpillars and feed on their hemolymph. 29. Impeding their development. 30. Feeding on a snake. Feeding on a frog. Feeding on a bird. Finding hosts. Blood-feeding female mosquitoes find their hosts using multiple cues, including exhaled carbon dioxide, heat, and many different odorants. Most mosquito species are crepuscular, feeding at dawn or dusk, and resting in a cool place through the heat of the day. 31. Some species, such as the Asian tiger mosquito, are known to fly and feed during daytime. 32. Female mosquitoes hunt for hosts by smelling substances such as carbon dioxide, CO2, and 1-OCTEN3OL, mushroom alcohol, found in exhaled breath produced from the host, and through visual recognition. 33. The semiochemical that most strongly attracts Culex quinquefasciatus is nonanol. 34. Another attractant is sulcatone. 35. A large part of the mosquito's sense of smell, or olfactory system, is devoted to sniffing out blood sources. Of 72 types of odor receptors on its antennae, at least 27 are tuned to detect chemicals found in perspiration. 36. In Aedes, the search for a host takes place in two phases. First, the mosquito flies about until it detects a host's odorants, then it flies towards them, using the concentration of odorants as its guide. 37. Mosquitoes prefer to feed on people with type O blood, an abundance of skin bacteria, high body heat, and pregnant women. 38-39. Individuals' attractiveness to mosquitoes has a heritable, genetically controlled component. 40. The multitude of characteristics. 38-39. 37. Mosquitoes prefer to feed on people with type O blood, an abundance of skin bacteria, high body heat, and pregnant women. 38-39. Individuals' attractiveness to mosquitoes has a heritable, genetically controlled component. 40. The multitude of characteristics in a host observed by the mosquito allows it to select a host to feed on. This occurs when a mosquito notes the presence of CO2, as it then activates odor and visual search behaviors that it otherwise would not use. In terms of a mosquito's olfactory system, chemical analysis has revealed that people who are highly attractive to mosquitoes produce significantly more carboxylic acids. 41. A human's unique body odor indicates that the target is actually a human host rather than some other living warm-blooded animal, as the presence of CO2 shows. Body odor, composed of volatile organic compounds emitted from the skin of humans, is the most important cue used by mosquitoes. 42. Variation in skin odor is caused by body weight, hormones, genetic factors, and metabolic or genetic disorders. Infections such as malaria can influence an individual's body odor. People infected by malaria produce relatively large amounts of plasmodium-induced aldehydes in the skin, creating large cues for mosquitoes as it increases the attractiveness of an odor blend, imitating a healthy human odor. Infected individuals produce larger amounts of aldehydes heptanol, octanol, and nonanol. These compounds are detected by mosquito antennae. Thus, people infected with malaria are more prone to mosquito biting. 43. Contributing to a mosquito's ability to activate search behaviors. A mosquito's visual search system includes sensitivity to wavelengths from different colors. Mosquitoes are attracted to longer wavelengths, correlated to the colors of red and orange as seen by humans, and range through the spectrum of human skin tones. In addition, they have a strong attraction to dark, high-contrast objects, because of how longer wavelengths are perceived against a lighter-colored background. 44. Scanning electron microscope image of the labium tip of Culex mosquito. Different species of mosquitoes have evolved different methods of identifying target hosts. Study of a domestic form and an animal biting form of the mosquito Aedes aegypti showed that the evolution of preference for human odor is linked to increases in the expression of the olfactory receptor AGR4. This recognizes a compound present at high levels in human odor called sulcatone. However, the malaria mosquito Anopheles gambii also has OR4 genes strongly activated by sulcatone, yet none of them are closely related to AGR4, suggesting that the two species have evolved to specialize in biting humans independently. 45. Mouthparts. Female mosquito mouthparts are highly adapted to piercing skin and sucking blood. Males only drink sugary fluids, and have less specialized mouthparts. 46. Externally, the most obvious feeding structure of the mosquito is the proboscis, composed of the labium, U-shaped in section like a rain gutter, which sheaths a bundled fascicle of 6 piercing mouthparts or stylets. These are 2 mandibles, 2 maxillae, the hypopharynx, and the labrum. The labium bends back into a bow when the mosquito begins to bite, staying in contact with the skin and guiding the stylets downwards. The extremely sharp tips of the labrum and maxillae are moved backwards and forwards to saw their way into the skin, with just 1/1000th of the force that would be needed to penetrate the skin with a needle, resulting in a painless insertion. 47, 48, 49. Evolution of mosquito mouthparts, with grasshopper mouthparts, shown both in situ and separately, representing a more primitive condition. All the mouthparts except the labium or stylets, formed into a fascicle or bundle. Mouthparts of a female mosquito while feeding on blood, showing the flexible labium sheath supporting the piercing and sucking tube which penetrates the host skin. Saliva. Mosquito saliva contains enzymes that aid in sugar feeding, 50, and antimicrobial agents that control bacterial growth in the sugar meal. 51. For a mosquito to obtain a blood meal, it must circumvent its vertebrate host's physiological responses. Mosquito saliva blocks the host's hemostasis system, with proteins that reduce vascular constriction, blood clotting, and platelet aggregation, to ensure the blood keeps flowing. 52. It modulates the host's immune response via a mixture of proteins which lower angiogenesis and immunity, create inflammation. 52. 53. Suppress tumor necrosis factor release from activated mast cells. 54. Suppress interleukin IL-2 and IFN gamma production. 55. 56. Suppress T cell populations. 57. 58. 59. Decrease expression of interferon-alpha beta, making virus infections more severe. 60. 61. Increase natural killer T cells in the blood, and decrease cytokine production. 62. Egg development and blood digestion. An Anopheles stevensii female is engorged with blood and beginning to pass unwanted liquid fractions to make room in its gut for more of the solid nutrients. Females of many blood-feeding species need a blood meal to begin the process of egg development. A sufficiently large blood meal triggers a hormonal cascade that leads to egg development. 63. Upon completion of feeding, the mosquito withdraws her proboscis, and as the gut fills up, the stomach lining secretes a paratrophic membrane that surrounds the blood. This keeps the blood separate from anything else in the stomach. Like many hemiptera that survive on dilute liquid diets, many adult mosquitoes excrete surplus liquid even when feeding. This permits females to accumulate a full meal of nutrient solids. The blood meal is digested over a period of several days. 64. Once blood is in the stomach, the midgut synthesizes protease enzymes, primarily trypsin assisted by aminopeptidase, that hydrolyze the blood proteins into free amino acids. These are used in the synthesis of vitellogenin. 64. Once blood is in the stomach, the midgut synthesizes protease enzymes, primarily trypsin assisted by aminopeptidase, that hydrolyze the blood proteins into free amino acids. These are used in the synthesis of vitellogenin, which in turn is made into egg yolk protein. 65. Distribution. Cosmopolitan. Mosquitoes have a cosmopolitan distribution, occurring in every land region except Antarctica and a few islands with polar or subpolar climates, such as Iceland, which is essentially free of mosquitoes. 66. This absence is probably caused by Iceland's climate. Its weather is unpredictable, freezing but often warming suddenly in midwinter, making mosquitoes emerge from pupae in diapause, and then freezing again before they can complete their life cycle. 67. 68. Eggs of temperate zone mosquitoes are more tolerant of cold than the eggs of species indigenous to warmer regions. 69. 70. Many can tolerate sub-zero temperatures, while adults of some species can survive winter by sheltering in microhabitats such as buildings or hollow trees. 71. In warm and humid tropical regions, some mosquito species are active for the entire year, but in temperate and cold regions they hibernate or enter diapause. Arctic or subarctic mosquitoes, like some other Arctic midges in families such as Simuliidae and Ceratopogonidae, may be active for only a few weeks annually as meltwater pools form on the permafrost. During that time, though, they emerge in huge numbers in some regions. A swarm may take up to 300 milliliters of blood per day from each animal in a caribou herd. 72. Effect of climate change. For a mosquito to transmit disease, there must be favorable seasonal conditions. 73. Primarily humidity, temperature, and precipitation. 74. El Niño affects the location and number of outbreaks in East Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia and India. Climate change impacts the seasonal factors and in turn the dispersal of mosquitoes. 75. Climate models can use historic data to recreate past outbreaks and to predict the risk of vector-borne disease, based on an area's forecasted climate. 76. Mosquito-borne diseases have long been most prevalent in East Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, and India. An emergence in Europe was observed early in the 21st century. It is predicted that by 2030, the climate of southern Great Britain will be suitable for transmission of Plasmodium vivax malaria by Anopheles mosquitoes for 2 months of the year, and that by 2080, the same will be true for southern Scotland. 77. 78. Dengue fever, 2, is spreading northwards with climate change. The vector, the Asian tiger mosquito Aedes albopictus, has by 2023 established across southern Europe and as far north as much of northern France, Belgium, Holland, and both Kent and West London in England. 79. Ecology. Predators and parasites. Mosquito larvae are among the commonest animals in ponds, and they form an important food source for freshwater predators. Among the many aquatic insects that catch mosquito larvae are dragonfly and damselfly nymphs, whirligig beetles, and water striders. Vertebrate predators include fish such as catfish and the mosquito fish, amphibians including the spadefoot toad and the giant tree frog, freshwater turtles such as the red-eared slider, and birds such as ducks. 80. Emerging adults are consumed at the pond surface by predatory flies including Empedidae and Dolichopodidae, and by spiders. Flying adults are captured by dragonflies and damselflies, by birds such as swifts and swallows, and by vertebrates including bats. 81. Mosquitoes are parasitized by hydrocnid mites, ciliates such as glaucoma, microsporidians such as thalania, and fungi including species of Cyprolagniaceae and Entomophoraceae. 81. Pollination. A mosquito visiting a marigold flower for nectar. Several flowers including members of the Asteraceae, Rosaceae and Orchidaceae are pollinated by mosquitoes, which visit to obtain sugar-rich nectar. They are attracted to flowers by a range of semiochemicals such as alcohols, aldehydes, ketones, and terpenes. Mosquitoes have visited and pollinated flowers since the Cretaceous period. It is possible that plant-sucking exapted mosquitoes to blood-sucking. 17. Parasitism. Ecologically, blood-feeding mosquitoes are micropredators, small animals that feed on larger animals without immediately killing them. Evolutionary biologists see this as a form of parasitism. In Edward O. Wilson's phrase, parasites are predators that eat prey in units of less than 1. 82. Micropredation is one of 6 major evolutionarily stable strategies within parasitism. It is distinguished by leaving the host still able to reproduce, unlike the activity of parasitic castrators or parasitoids, and having multiple hosts, unlike conventional parasites. 83. 84. From this perspective, mosquitoes are ectoparasites, feeding on blood from the outside of their hosts, using their piercing mouthparts, rather than entering their bodies. Unlike some other ectoparasites such as fleas and lice, mosquitoes do not remain constantly on the body of the host, but visit only. Unlike some other ectoparasites such as fleas and lice, mosquitoes do not remain constantly on the body of the host, but visit only to feed. 84. Evolution. Fossil record. Culex malariager mosquito infected with the malarial parasite Plasmodium dominicana, in Dominican amber of Miocene age, 15 to 20 million years ago. 85. A 2023 study suggested that Libanoculex intermedius found in Lebanese amber, dating to the Barremian age of the early Cretaceous, around 125 million years ago, was the oldest known mosquito. 86. However, its identification as a mosquito is disputed, with other authors considering it to be a chowborid fly instead. 87. 3 other unambiguous species of Cretaceous mosquito are known. Vermaculex anticus and Priscoculex bermanicus are known from Burmese amber from Myanmar, which dates to the earliest part of the Cenomanian age of the late Cretaceous, around 99 million years ago. 88. 89. Paleoculosis minutus is known from Canadian amber from Alberta, Canada, which dates to the Campanian age of the late Cretaceous, around 79 million years ago. 90. P. bermanicus has been assigned to the Anophelinae, indicating that the split between this subfamily and the Culicinae took place over 99 million years ago. 89. Molecular estimates suggest that this split occurred 197.5 million years ago, during the early Jurassic, but that major diversification did not take place until the Cretaceous. 89. Molecular estimates suggest that this split occurred 197.5 million years ago, during the early Jurassic, but that major diversification did not take place until the Cretaceous. 91. Taxonomy. Over 3,600 species of mosquitoes in 112 genera have been described. They are traditionally divided into 2 subfamilies, the Anophelinae and the Culicinae, which carry different diseases. Roughly speaking, protozoal diseases like malaria are transmitted by anophelines, while viral diseases such as yellow fever and dengue fever are transmitted by culicines. 92. The name Culicidae was introduced by the German entomologist Johann Wilhelm Meigen in his 7-volume classification published in 1818-1838. 93. Mosquito taxonomy was advanced in 1901 when the English entomologist Frederick Vincent Theobald published his 5-volume monograph on the Culicidae. 94. He had been provided with mosquito specimens sent into the British Museum, Natural History, from around the world, on the 1898 instruction of the Secretary of State for the Colonies, Joseph Chamberlain, who had written that, in view of the possible connection of malaria with mosquitoes, it is desirable to obtain exact knowledge of the different species of mosquitoes and allied insects in the various tropical colonies. I will therefore ask you to have collections made of the winged insects in the colony which bite men or animals. 95. Phylogeny. External. Mosquitoes are members of a family of the true flies, order Diptera, the Culicidae, from the Latin culex, genitive culicis, meaning midge, or net. 96. They are members of the infraorder Culicomorpha and superfamily Culicoidea. The phylogenetic tree is based on the Flytree project. 97. 98. Diptera. Tychopteromorpha, phantom and primitive crane flies. Culicomorpha. Chironomidae, non-biting midges. Simuloidea, black flies and biting midges. Culicoidea. Dixidae, meniscus midges. Corythrellidae, frog-biting midges. Chalboridae, phantom midges. Culicidae. Other midges and gnats. All other flies, Inc. Brachycera. True flies. Internal. The 2 subfamilies of mosquitoes are Anophelinae, containing 3 genera and approximately 430 species, and Culicinae, which contains 11 tribes, 108 genera and 3,046 species. Kyan Reidenbach and colleagues analyzed mosquito phylogenetics in 2009, using both nuclear DNA and morphology of 26 species. They note that anopheline is confirmed to be rather basal, but that the deeper parts of the tree are not well resolved. 99. Culicity. Basal SPP. Anopheline. Culicinae. Other SPP. Edini. Other SPP. Sabathini. Anopheles albumin is feeding on a human arm. As mosquitoes are the only vectors of malaria, controlling them reduces its incidence. Vectors of disease. Mosquitoes are vectors for many disease-causing microorganisms including bacteria, viruses, and protozoan parasites. Nearly 700 million people acquire a mosquito-borne illness each year, resulting in over 725,000 deaths. 100 common mosquito-borne viral diseases include yellow fever, 101, and dengue fever transmitted mostly by Aedes aegypti. 102 parasitic diseases transmitted by mosquitoes include malaria and lymphatic filariasis. The plasmodium parasites that cause malaria are carried by female Anopheles mosquitoes. Lymphatic filariasis, the main cause of elephantiasis. Interactions with humans. Is spread by a wide variety of mosquitoes. 103. A bacterial disease spread by Culex and Culiceta mosquitoes is tularemia. 104. Control. Mosquito nets can prevent people being bitten while they sleep. Many measures have been tried for mosquito control, including the elimination of breeding places, exclusion via window screens and mosquito nets, biological control with parasites such as fungi, 105, 106, and nematodes, 107, or predators such as fish, 108, 109, 110 copepods, 111 dragonfly nymphs and adults, and some species of lizard and gecko. 112. Another approach is to introduce large numbers of sterile males. 113. Genetic modification methods including cytoplasmic incompatibility, chromosomal translocations, sex distortion and gene replacement, solutions seen as inexpensive and not subject to vector resistance, have been explored. 114. Control of disease-carrying mosquitoes using gene drives has been proposed. 115. 116. Repellents. Mosquito repellents, including a mosquito coil, in a Finnish store. Insect repellents are applied on skin and give short-term protection against mosquito bites. The chemical DEET repels some mosquitoes and other insects. 117. Some CDC recommended repellents are picaridin, eucalyptus oil PMD, and ethylbutylacetylaminopropionate IR 3535. 118. Pyrethrum, from chrysanthemum species, particularly C. cinerarifolium and C. cochineum, is an effective plant-based repellent. 119. Electronic insect repellent devices that produce ultrasounds intended to keep away insects and mosquitoes are marketed. No EPA or university study has shown that these devices prevent humans from being bitten by a mosquito. 120. Bites. Mosquito bites lead to a variety of skin reactions and more seriously to mosquito bite allergies. 121. Such hypersensitivity to mosquito bites is an excessive reaction to mosquito saliva proteins. 122. Numerous species of mosquito can trigger such reactions, including Aedes aegypti, Avexans, A. albopictus, Anopheles sinensis, Culex pipiens. 122. 122. Numerous species of mosquito can trigger such reactions, including Aedes aegypti, Avexans, A. albopictus, Anopheles sinensis, Culex pipiens. 123. Aedes communis, Anopheles stevensii, 124. C. quinquefasciatus, C. tritaniurensis, 125, and Ochlorotatus triceriotus. 126. Cross-reactivity between salivary proteins of different mosquitoes implies that allergic responses may be caused by virtually any mosquito species. 127. Treatment can be with anti-itch medications, including some taken orally, such as diphenhydramine, or applied to the skin like antihistamines or corticosteroids such as hydrocortisone. Aqueous ammonia, 3.6%, also provides relief. 128. Both topical heat, 129, and cold may be useful as treatments. 130. In human culture. Greek mythology. Arthur Rackham's illustration of the fable of the Bull and the Mosquito, 1912. Ancient Greek beast fables including the elephant and the mosquito, and the bull and the mosquito, with the general moral that the large beast does not even notice the small one, derive ultimately from Mesopotamia. 131. Origin myths. The peoples of Siberia have origin myths surrounding the mosquito. One Ostiak myth tells of a man-eating giant, Punagus, who is killed by a hero but will not stay dead. The hero eventually burns the giant, but the ashes of the fire become mosquitoes that continue to plague mankind. Other myths from the Yakuts, Golds Nanai people, and Samoyed have the insect arising from the ashes or fragments of some giant creature or demon. Similar tales found in native North American myth, with the mosquito arising from the ashes of a man-eater, suggest a common origin. The Tatars of the Altai had a variant of the same myth, involving the fragments of the dead giant, Andalma muse, becoming mosquitoes and other insects. 132. Lafcadio Hearn tells that in Japan, mosquitoes are seen as reincarnations of the dead, condemned by the errors of their former lives to the condition of Jiki Ketsu Gaki, or blood-drinking pretas. 133. Modern era. How a Mosquito Operates, 1912. Winsor McKay's 1912 film How a Mosquito Operates was one of the earliest works of animation. It has been described as far ahead of its time in technical quality. 134. It depicts a giant mosquito tormenting a sleeping man. 135. 12 ships of the Royal Navy have borne the name HMS Mosquito or the archaic form of the name, HMS Mosquito. 136. The de Havilland Mosquito was a high-speed aircraft manufactured between 1940 and 1950, and used in many roles. 137. The Russian city of Berezniki annually celebrates its mosquitoes from the 17th of July to the 20th in a Most Delicious Girl competition. In the competition, the girls stand for 20 minutes in their shorts and vests, and the one who receives the most bites wins. 138. Mosquito.